this class 5, and class 5 is about planning and social capital. Before we go further, I just want to remind you guys, go to the subreddit, reddit.com/r/positive change to continue the discussions. I really encourage everyone who's watching this to go in there and contribute to some of the questions, or if you have any comments or anything at all, just feel free to post. We'll try to make it a learning environment. So if you have comments to other people's replies, or if you have your own comments or questions, please put them in there. Okay, so again, we talked about this every class, and this is one's no exception. Here's the model that we're using for change. And again, you've probably seen something like this before, or you intuitively known these steps for the most part. But basically, you start off with a shared vision, which we talked a lot about about how you use things like appreciative inquiry to really get a shared vision that's based off of strengths and really energizes people versus really shutting them down. And then we talk about how do you assess performance, competencies, and gaps, taking a look at what competencies and gaps do you have that are systemic, that have been there for a long time and may be there for a very long time, and what are situational based off of what you need. And more importantly, focusing on the performance competencies a little bit more than the gaps, because if you spend too much time in the gaps, it really brings people down because it causes a stress response in people, and that stress response ends up activating a flight or fight mechanism and ends up shutting people down usually. In this lesson, we're going to cover basically the rest of the model, really look at the social capital, the organization action plan, and the strategic plan, and really how do you create the strategic plan, an example of a strategic plan. Then we'll talk about what is the difference between a strategic plan and an action plan, and then we'll get to a little bit of the social capital and what that means. Okay, so what is the difference between strategic and action plan? Strategic plan is really high level, and it's really a set of activities which you decide to do or not do, and it's more directional. Whereas an action plan, it has some very specific goals. So you have your SMART goals, with SMART being specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. And you have learning goals for something more complex. And just as a quick refresher, we talked about learning goals earlier in the lessons, but a learning goal is something that you have when you want to do something that's complex. So let's say you've already ran a marathon once, and you want to run it again, and you already have the knowledge. So SMART goals are probably more applicable to what you're trying to do. But let's say you want to run a marathon and you've never ran a day in your life. Well, a learning goal is probably a little bit more important for you then. A learning goal basically says, I want to learn X to do Y. So one of your learning goals might be, I want to learn proper running technique and form so I can run injury-free to run a marathon. What that implies is that it gives you some space to experiment and learn and practice as you learn how to run or how to lose weight for the marathon or whatever you need. In organizations, this could manifest very similarly. So let's say you're looking at a new market or a new product. A learning goal might be, we want to learn what our target audience is for a new product that we have or an idea that we have. And so basically it allows you that freedom to test and experiment to see what works and what doesn't. Again, it's not a SMART goal which says that you have specific deliverables on certain dates. It's a little bit more open-ended. Okay. And then finally we have this, we have an example of the OCA strategic map that was created, and we're going to put it under class 5 as well, but it's also under class 3. You've seen it already, and we're going to show it to you here in a little bit. But the OCA is an organization that I did some work with. It's the Organization Change Alliance. It's a nonprofit group that's in Atlanta, Georgia, and it's full of organizational development professionals. And so we're going to walk you through what a strategic plan looks like when you actually have one, after going through the first two steps of creating a shared vision and then looking at the assessment. Okay. Again, feel free to go to University of Reddit and download the PDF file. And the PDF file has 2 pages. This is the second page. The first page is the step-by-step process we did to get to this point. And you can read a little bit more about how we use things like appreciative inquiry, how we created that shared vision, and how we did some analysis. But basically, a strategic map This one in particular, the way it works is at the bottom, we have our strategic initiatives. These are the breakthrough objectives. And being a nonprofit, we wanted to keep it simple. So the nonprofit chose two different breakthrough objectives, one around rebranding and one around inclusion. And I'm not going to read the details here for you, but these are 3-year objectives. From that, what we do is we feed it into annual objectives. So it's color coded. So the one around inclusion, the annual objective is around building avenues of inclusion. And around rebranding, the annual objective is really a new face of OCA, or Organization Change Alliance. And then the next step really gets more into the action plan. So this gives you a glimpse of what an action plan can start looking like. So the parts that we covered so far are more strategic, and now we have the action plan. So inside of the inclusion, we had a 1-year priority of building avenues for inclusion, and some of those avenues include creating special interest groups, or SIGs, doing service projects, and doing more networking socials. And then if you come over to the right, you'll notice that there's more items here. These are your metrics. Or what is success? So a lot of these would be learning goals, or they could be SMART goals. With these, a lot of these are infrastructure type items. So creating special interest groups is what does success look like? Well, we've created 2 new SIG goals, or 2 new SIG groups, and again, SIGs being special interest groups. So this gives you a single page alignment of what is our breakthrough objective that we want as a 3, 5, 10-year goal. How does it translate to this year? And what are some actions that we're going to do to get there? And this page also takes a little step further. If you look on the right, it gives you owners. So whatever the dots are, those are people that are in charge of actually doing this and getting it moving. This is actually accompanied with a Excel spreadsheet, and in that spreadsheet, it actually takes each one of these annual improvement priorities, this list here, the things like creating special interest groups, service projects, networking socials, all those. It takes those and it actually spreads it out into a year format, saying when are we going to do what with this project. So, for instance, the service projects might be starting January of January of 2012, we might actually start reaching out to different nonprofits so we can set up a service project, the first service project to be done by or started by May. It gives you an example. So it'll have that information in that spreadsheet. So this, again, just gives you a way of aligning and keeping track and how to move forward. And if you're in a large organization, you can use a tool like this at multiple levels. So, for instance, at the very high level, you may have an objective here, but then let's say, for instance, there's an item here that says website redesign. There might be a whole IT team or design team that you would give that item to, and they would take over, and they would actually have that as part of their initiative. But having something like the new face of OCA, every group may interpret that slightly differently. So this is also a great way of aligning the organization from top to bottom as to what needs to be worked on and what are the priorities. But it's rooted in that common shared vision that was hopefully created by as many voices as possible in the organization and outside the organization. Okay, so what is social capital? Now we're going to talk about that a little bit. Social capital is a lot of different things. And I just gave you some examples here. So an example, and again, all social capital is not good or bad. So for instance, in Austin, they have a saying called "Keep Austin Weird," which I would classify as a good social capital. And in Vegas, they have something like "What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas." And some people may think that's a good social capital, but if you think about it, it's really promoting short-term fun and possibly promoting long-term angst, potentially. So another example around this would be climate change. So the social capital around climate change is really doom and gloom. It's really a lot of negative messaging, like the movie Inconvenient Truth, or most of the things you see around climate change are all saying, well, our oceans are rising, icebergs are melting, wildlife is becoming extinct. Whereas a World Wildlife Foundation, which is also on a similar scale, on a global scale, they're surrounded by messages of cute and cuddly animals. If you ever watch a video of the World Wildlife Federation, they don't show you images of devastation or animals dying. They show you pandas. They show you cute animals, and they show you much more positive message. What else is in social capital? Well, you've got company lingo, you've got company artwork, posters, whatever else that's out there. And even water cooler talk can be social capital. And more importantly, leadership falls into this realm. So what leadership focuses on can tip the scale. If they want to focus on the positive outcomes, you will tend that way. If they want to focus on the negative outcomes, you can tip that way. When we looked at that study earlier in our lessons where it showed that the high performing teams had a much higher positive to negative comment ratio than low performing teams, a lot of that was driven by leadership and team dynamics. So a leader really sets the tone, whether it's a leader within just a team of 2, team of 50, or the CEO of the company. It makes a difference. Okay. So this was the final assignment, and if you guys have more questions or want to learn more, please post to the positive Reddit, the subreddit Positive Change, and I'll be more happy to potentially make another class or anything else where you guys want to learn about. But if you could, go ahead and go to the subreddit Positive Change, go to class 5, and share some of your social capital that you have, whether it's good or bad, and ideas of how you might tweak it or change it. Anything that you might have that you think would help with the social capital. And then also, if you would like, you can share your strategic and action plans, but that gets a little too much detail. So whatever you can share, that'd be great. If you don't feel like comfortable sharing anything, that's fine as well. But please do share your social capital and what you think you can do there to help or help or hurt an effort. All right. Thanks again, guys, for listening. I really appreciate all of you being here. And again, I'll be interacting with you guys online through the subreddit Positive Change. So please post there, ask questions there, or you can send me direct messages. I'm the moderator for that subreddit. So look forward to talking with you guys online, and take care. Thank you.